Do you have the telly on in your house when no one's really watching, but it's on in the background? Your baby's playing, maybe you're in and out to the kitchen, that sort of thing. It's on, it's playing, but nobody's really paying attention. If so, this might be of interest to you. If we haven't met before, my name's Claire Stead. I'm the creator and founder of the Aliki app. It's an app for parents just like you, with babies in the first 1,000 days of life. It's the time when the baby's brain is developing faster than any other time. And it's a time when you have a massive impact on your baby's development and life outcomes for whole of life across every area, which is truly amazing. And that's what Aliki does. It supports you to feel amazing, to know that you're doing the very best you can to support your baby's development. And we do it through evidence-based research. And this is a piece of research that I found really fascinating, because so many of us have the telly on, don't we, in the background? We don't really pay attention to it. But this piece of research looked at the impact that having the telly on had on children's development. And what they found was that when the telly is on, the first thing they found was that parents tend to speak less to their children once the telly's on. And that reduction in verbal communication can hinder your child's language development and their language skills, and even their cognitive, their thinking abilities. For instance, now this is staggering. For parents who normally, when we don't have the telly on, parents speak about 940 words an hour with their child. They're just twittering along. When the telly's on, this drops off to an amazing 170 words an hour. So that means that the babies are just having a whole lot less words from the parents that they can hear and that they can take and learn from. The other thing they found was that telly distracts play. Now, when it's on in the background and the child's really busy, they're engaged in doing their thing, and then what happens is they're doing their hands-on play, but something catches their eye on the telly because of those constant moving pictures on the screen. That catches their eye, that breaks their play, their concentration and their focus, which are all muscles that we need to develop in our children, and they're now focused on the telly. They've completely lost what they were doing in their play, and that connection to their play, their focus, their concentration has been broken. And now they're focused on the telly, and they have to pull themselves away from the telly and put themselves back in the play. So by having the telly on and that interruption happening, we are preventing our children from developing those longer periods of concentration and focus that we really want them to have, which means that they're going to play for longer. That means that they're going to be focused for longer. And I have parents all the time saying to me, my child doesn't have any focus and concentration, and this might be one of the contributing factors. So if you just turn the telly off, it could be that your child will focus and concentrate longer on the play they're doing because they're not distracted. So the third thing they found was there was a massive impact on language development. The presence of that TV noise in the background can negatively affect their ability to process and learn language. Because you see, our children, our babies and our toddlers need to interact with us as caregivers to develop their language skills effectively. And that TV background noise can interfere with them hearing the correct pronunciation and the correct words. And also, if their focus and concentration is taken away, it can interfere with them hearing, being tuned in to what's being said. So it can interfere with them receiving the basics of the language that they're learning. And particularly if you've got dual language children, this is going to make it even more complex. The fourth thing they found was that it interrupted cognitive development, the thinking development of the child. This earlier exposure to background TV has been linked to having these poorer cognitive outcomes. And what the study suggested was that it was the distraction caused by the TV that can drain the thinking side of the brain. Because if you think about it, the babies have got really new brains and they're learning everything, and that's hard work when we learn something new. And if we're having our concentration and focus taken away somewhere else, constantly flitting in and out of the thing that we're trying to learn, it's much, much harder to do that. Try and read a really difficult academic paper or something like that with the telly on or the radio on, and you'll find you're reading that same sentence about 14 times. Like if you're in a cafe and there's like somebody who's got a big noisy voice in the background, it's really hard to concentrate on what you're trying to do. Say you're in a cafe and you're trying to type something out, you find yourself typing what they're saying, because your brain just can't focus on that tricky thing. And it's the same for our children if the telly's on in the background. Even if you're not noticing it, they potentially are. So what can we do about it? How can we make a difference? Well, first up, turn the telly off. Whenever it's possible, just turn the telly off, and that will mean that you are interacting with your baby so much more. And by doing that, you're going to give them and expose them to loads and loads of beautiful language. And we know that we've got a crisis in our nurseries and in our schools in our children's language development. It's really critical that they learn the basics of language in these early days, and it's through our experiences that we give them, through our chitter-chatter, our everydayness, that we are able to equip our children with those foundational skills that they're going to need to have amazing language later on. The next thing we can do, we can engage in direct conversation and communication. That's talking, singing, reading with your child, describing what you're doing, asking questions, encouraging them to respond. And this helps build their vocabulary and their cognitive skills, their thinking skills in context. So what it means is that as you're cooking, maybe you're making chili and you'll be discussing what you're chopping up. I'm getting an onion, I'm going to cut it in half. That gives you a language of maths, because we're talking about the fact that we're doing something in half. I'm going to make it bigger, I'm going to make it smaller, I'm going to put it in here where it's very hot, I'm going to stir. And as you're doing that, you're demonstrating, you're modelling the thing that you're talking about, and that gives the child the ability to look at what you're doing and focus on what you're doing and hook the words onto the actions that you do, which is why narrating is so important. What's the next thing? You're going to create a stimulating environment, because if you're providing a small range of open-ended toys and activities that encourage hands-on play, that's going to ensure that the environment that they, and you ensure that the environment that they are in is free from distractions like the background TV. That's going to help your child develop and their focus and their ability to explore and investigate and inquire, and all those wonderful things that we want for our children. And that's where the Aliki app is going to really help you, because it's going to give you tiny activities to do that you don't need a whole load of setting up for, using things from in and around your home for the first 1,000 days. So the suggestion is that we limit or reduce all screen time for children under 2, and instead focus on these interactive, engaging activities with our babies together, face to face. And research shows that on average 2-year-olds are currently experiencing 17 hours of screen time a week, and that rises to 30 hours by the time they're 3. Now, the challenge with that is not necessarily the screen time, but if they're having that much screen time, it's what they're not having during that period of time that becomes problematic. If a 3-year-old is not having 30 hours of interactive communication and language exposure, that's significant in a baby's developmental wake periods of time. So we need to give them the opportunity to explore and inquire and investigate and learn at home through the play that we do, because this is the environment in which they're developing. So what can we do instead? We can add music if you want. You can have background music, because that's not good. That becomes ambient sound, but it also, if it's soft music, then it can be very much less distracting for your child than having the recurring movement of visuals as well. But it's also quite calming for your child. And be mindful of your screen use, because if we model good behaviour by limiting our screen time, which I know is super hard, I am as bad as everybody else, what that does is we're showing our babies that we care about them, we respect them, we want to spend time engaging with them face to face, and they will do the same to us. Babies are brilliant mimics. What we share with them, they will give back to us. We will see them literally copying what we do. So if we want our children to have a good relationship with screens, because after all, screens are going to be in their lives for the rest of their lives, then we need to start modelling that from the beginning, because very often we think that babies can't see and they're very young and they aren't taking things in these early days, but actually that's quite the opposite. So by turning off your telly, spending more time, you'll spend more time face-to-face chatting with your baby, which will give them more language, which will enhance their development potential during this critical period of the first 1,000 days. And if you get stuck of things to do, that's where the Aliki app is going to help you. It's free to download for the first 7 days, and after that it's less than the price of a fancy coffee a month. It's cheap as chips, and it's there to support you, evidence-based, research-based, learning and development for your baby from conception right the way through to 2, written by teachers, education researchers, parents, just because I know how hard it is to fill those days when you're a new parent. Let me know in the comments below, what do you do about screen time in your family? How do you work it?